Very few people in Celtic's history have won league titles as both a player and as part of the management team, and fewer still can claim to have done so in such dramatic fashion as today's guest. When 10 men won the league on a spring night in 1979, when against all the odds the miracle at Love Street occurred in 1986, and then when we stopped the 10 in 1998 in yet another final day decider, there's just one man who played a pivotal part in all three of those most memorable title wins in our history. That man is Murdo MacLeod, and I'm delighted he now joins us on the Celtic Exchange to tell us about a life in football. Murdo, it started almost 50 years ago when you made your debut as a teenager at Dumbarton. How do you feel now when you reflect on everything that's passed since?
Oh, it's been fantastic. No, I'm still involved in football, still going to the games, still cheering everyone when they do something well on the football park, and it's great to go and watching the games. Great watching the teams I played for. You know, I go and watch Dumbarton every other Saturday. Go and watch Celtic at the following weekend. I don't go through to Edinburgh too often because it's just a wee bit too far for me just now.
Yeah.
And obviously the other one, Dortmund. It's a great place to go to.
Yeah, I'm sure you're warmly received anytime you make the visit there. Murdo, as I mentioned, it's Dumbarton. That was your first senior club. You signed there around about 17, 18 years of age. So at that point, would you ever have anticipated the career you would go on to have?
Nothing like it. Nothing like it. It was. I was fortunate enough when I was 13, 14, 15, 16. I was going up to 16. And I was down at Arsenal, I was down at Wolves, played and trial down there. And then when I was at Dumbarton, I was training there. And then Alec Wright says, if you sign for us, I'll give you a game in the reserves tomorrow night. And Alec Wright drove through to Mulgai and I signed for Dumbarton. And it was up to Dundee for the game, and I'm looking about and I see Gordon Strachan. He was playing for the Dundee reserve, and so was Tommy Gemmell.
Yep.
And it was great seeing them at the game. And then I got on to the second half, and Alec Wright shouting to Murdo, right, to me, on you go, and all this kind of thing. Right, Wispy, come on, you're coming off. And I'm looking and I'm saying, who's Wispy? Who's Wispy? And he came over and he shook my hand and wished me all the best and all that kind of thing. And it was, oh, wow. Then I find out who Wispy is. Willie Wallace.
Yep, Lisbon line, Willie Wallace.
Absolutely fantastic. And it was great to for Willie, because when I was at Dumbarton and Willie was there, he wasn't there very often because he was maybe full time round about wherever he was and all that kind of thing. But then he went to Australia, and then he was asking me if I want to go to Australia. And no, it was just, I was just going through the normal way to play for Dumbarton. And then it was, I just turned 20. Mm-hmm. And then it was, Celtic want to sign you. And it's here we go.
Here's something to think about.
Here's something really special. When it was, got up to, then right away, I was in a Scottish team. It was playing the night before. I think it was at Motherwell.
Yeah, a league select, was it?
A league select thing. And then whoever the manager was says, we're not going to play you tonight because you're signing for Celtic tomorrow morning. And I says, I don't worry, I'm all right with that. So it was fantastic.
And we'll get to all of that, Murdo, and the story behind that, and Billy McNeil taking you across to Celtic Park. But coming on for a Lisbon line, no pressure, in terms of your debut. And then you go from Boghead all the way to Borussia Dortmund, and we'll cover all of that and then some as we go through the recording here. We're also joined today by someone who needs no introduction in Scottish football, and who himself has enjoyed a life in the game spanning some 54 years, many of which have been spent as a close friend to Murdo. Hugh, welcome back to the Celtic Exchange. A time in life when many folk of your age, if you don't mind me saying, are retiring. You've picked up the pen again, this time to write Murdo's biography, and we're going to talk about that in some detail today. Can you tell us a wee bit about the project in general and how that all came to be?
Well, Murdo's been my pal for 45 years. The best way to get a free drink was to know the guy who scored the 4th goal in the 4-2 game and take him into your local pub where Celtic supporters went. So I took Murdo in, who was then teetotal, and we stayed in the pub while the regulars were removed and the pub was closed down. Me and other of us got a lock in, and that was ended abruptly when my wife phoned the pub and told me that I could stay there all night if I wanted, but send that Murdo MacLeod back over the road because Mary, his wife, was there and she was about 2 weeks away from giving birth. So his first visit to my house ended up me getting a row, but I forgave him for that. And it's been my pleasure and privilege to have been with him in the highest moments of his career, and to have been with him at the lowest points in his life, where for medical reasons I've twice gone to see him in intensive care. But he's battled through, and that in essence is what the book's about. It's called Murdo Murdo because that was the fans' chant. It's also his doorbell. So the highs and lows, and it's been quite a career this guy's had.
Absolutely, and as I say, we're going to get into it all in some detail just shortly. Just another brief one. Hugh, you've obviously written many biographies over the years, notably Danny McGrain, Tommy Burns and several others. How was it for you, just quickly, to return to that world after what I think has been a bit of a gap in between?
Bizarre. I don't know, the last one was probably 30 years ago, but I went to see Murdo one morning and in the hospital, and he asked me and I could not say no. And then I found out that when you interview a MacLeod, you interview the whole family. At various points they were all in there talking at the same time, and in the corner was Sanjeev Kohli, and they're all doing routines from still games. So I thought, how do I write a book under these circumstances? But it's there and it's good to go.
Great, and we're looking forward to it. Murdo, let's take it back to Billy McNeill, the man who signed you for Celtic. So that's in November 1978. Tell us first of all just about Billy and what it meant to play for such an iconic figure at that time.
Anywhere you walk and if Billy McNeill's there, it's a wow. It was every player that's played football in their lives, and supporters it's been to games and all that, seeing Billy McNeill was special. And then when getting in and sitting down and at the table, and I'm signing for Celtic here, and I came out, my hands I was just shaking as I'm signing for Celtic, and Billy was there, and Davy Wilson was there, and who else was there? John Clark was there, and I'm thinking, goodness me, this is fantastic.
Just surrounded by Lisbon Lions.
Lisbon Lions, and it was great. But Billy being there, he was the boss. He was the boss. I remember watching Billy McNeill on television, and it was a week before I signed for Celtic, and it was Billy McNeill was asked, they were playing at Tynecastle, is anyone injured? And Big Billy, being Big Billy, shouted out, no, nobody's injured, they didn't need to have fallen off the table or something like that. And I was laughing that obviously he wasn't happy with how the team played. Mm-hmm. And then within a week I've signed for Celtic, and there was nothing that I knew of that Celtic wanted to sign me or anything like that. And then into the middle of the week, and then Alec Wright and Davy Wilson, they pulled me aside at Dumbarton and said, Celtic want you.
And it sounds like it's all come about pretty quick. We're obviously in those days, Murdo, when there's no transfer window, so you can be signed or transferred out at any given drop of a hat. So that's in November 1978. You've mentioned there you're 20 years of age. Was it nerve-wracking? Was it a no-brainer? How did you feel when it came to literally putting pen to paper?
It was a no-brainer, but it was I wasn't nervous. No, I'm saying to myself, this is where I want to be. No, I'm moving on up. Great times at Dumbarton.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's went through all the leagues, and then going to Celtic Park. When you leave at Boghead, the size of the stadium there, then all of a sudden you're walking in, you've got 50,000 seats or standing places at Celtic Park, and it was just fantastic to go to Celtic Park. But I was quite comfortable, and I knew a few of the boys, as in Big Roy and George McCluskey, and they were in the same squad. And then we were chatting away, and they came over and spoke to me, and then next day, the Friday, I've signed for Celtic.
And you're good to go.
That's it.
And you must have felt, you'd served your apprenticeship as such over 2-3 years at Dumbarton, and that you're ready then to make that step up. And there's no doubt that it's a huge step from Dumbarton to Celtic Park. We're going to talk about some of your successes, with Billy, across 1979 and beyond. But before we do so, can you tell us just about your lasting friendship with Billy, even beyond your time at Celtic? Hugh was on our show quite recently, described Billy as the greatest ever Celt, and I don't think many would argue with that.
Well, I wouldn't argue with that, but I was fortunate enough to be about Billy towards the end of his life, and it was just fantastic. No, he was always there. Mm-hmm. He was always there over all your life. That from even when I was away in Germany and all that kind of thing. Anyone mentioned Billy McNeil, I always spoke about Billy McNeil. It was always, he was really strong, really spoke about players. He wanted players to score goals. He always pulled me aside, and he would always have a wee bit of fun with me, talking about, scoring this goal and scoring that goal. You need to score a goal today if you want to beat Rangers and all that kind of thing. And it was always things that he put, because even when I scored Ibrox, and Big Billy was kind of chirpy away. I think it was 2-0 the score, and I'd scored from just outside the box, and he said, "Murdo, come on, we'll go up and see Diddle Doddle and tell him he's got a fantastic new stadium." And that was Ibrox just getting the new stand behind the goals. And he says, "Come on, we'll go up and tell him he's got a lovely new stadium." And that was Big Billy come out, and I'm walking behind him all the way up. But he didn't say anything to Willie Waddle.
Willie Waddle, I was going to say, would that be that? And that's the thing, everyone's got their own perceptions of Billy McNeil from that time, but all speak so warmly of him. My own dad seen Billy as, a hero, an icon, and I think it stemmed from that goal and then the 1965 Scottish Cup final, Hugh, and then everything that followed, from Billy's point of view. I spoke to Billy Stark a while ago. He was obviously part of the centenary team, and I asked Billy if Billy McNeil was maybe more of a motivator and a man manager than a tactician. But Billy said it was both. Billy Stark said that Billy McNeil had it all in his locker. Just in general, was he the perfect guy to play for in terms of Celtic stuff?
I think when you look at it, if you're trying to look at football now, there's no chance that anything's getting similar across the board. Football going back, it was all players going into challenges. But Billy would be saying it's going to be a 4-4-2 team and all that kind of thing. And he would stick by that. If we had won the game, then he would have that, or he'd maybe change it to 3 up front, depending who you're playing against. If it's a side that's not as strong as other teams, then we'll have a real good go at them.
Davy Probin tells a story in the book that on the night of the 4-2 game, Billy delivered the greatest pre-match dressing room speech that he had ever heard. And everyone knows the circumstances of that Monday night, the Monday night miracle as it was called. Celtic had to win and the league was theirs. And the 4-2 game, I always say to people about Murdo, if you wanted a day and a night in your life and you were a Celtic fan, you would take the night that he scored the fourth goal to settle the 4-2 game, and you would take the day he stood beside Wim Jansen and stopped Rangers from winning 10 in a row. His career would have satisfied most people. That one day and one night would have satisfied most people. Mm-hmm. He just did it to bookend his career.
Yeah, and there's various other highs in between in terms of your success, Murdo, at Celtic. Hugh, I was just going to ask you to set the tone. Most will know the story, getting into that game. Rangers just had to draw. Mm-hmm. Celtic obviously needed the win to have any chance of winning the league. So talk us through. It was Billy McNeil's first season. He'd taken over from Jock Stein. No pressure there. So it was a 78-79 season. So set the scene getting into that game.
Well, all Old Firm games are epics one way or another. But that game, I've spoken to people who were there, and they speak highly emotionally about being there. The game ebbed and flowed. Johnny Doyle was sent off harshly. It was 10 men versus 11. The Rangers 2-1 up, and then it got to 2-2, and then when it got to 3-2, everyone in the ground is just hoping that Celtic hang on. And when the ball lands at Murdo's feet, there were people shouting, "Don't shoot." But by the time they got to the gap between don't and shoot, he had, and it was in the net. It was a quite remarkable goal.
Yeah.
The atmosphere after the game inside the park, inside Billy's office, it was the likes of which I have never seen before or heard before. Celtic players of the past who were there. And the following day I remember going out, and Murdo got out of his car and he closed the door and he bent down and kissed the ground, and I thought, this guy's something else. and that was the start of our friendship, because I was out there to buy him up, as they say in newspaper terms, to do a special series of articles. But that night, for people of my age, it's still ingrained on the mind. And for those who weren't even born when it happened, they can tell you what happened, and they can tell you about his goal.
1981 is when I was born, Hugh, and I can now talk about it, but not from my own living memory. But lots of folk, have got in touch with us in terms of what we do here on the show, Murdo, and described that night as their greatest ever night as a Celtic fan. But as Hugh said, it's a game that ebbed and flowed, and at one point it wasn't going in Celtic's favour. We're a goal down after 9 minutes. Johnny Doyle gets sent off 10 minutes into the second half. At that point, Murdo, you're surrounded by real leaders in the team, Danny McGrain, Roy Aitken, George McCluskey, but did you feel it was maybe going to be beyond your grasp on that occasion?
No,
never.
I think it was, any time I've played against Rangers, I always felt that we would go and win the game. And then obviously to win the league, it was the things that happened with Johnny Doyle getting sent off. Because at one point you're thinking, we've got 11v11, and then having a go at Rangers, and they were having a go at us. But Doyle getting sent off for whatever reason, I don't know. I think he gave him a wee kick. And in modern day, you maybe get sent off, but not then.
Yeah.
But Doyley's off the park, and we were down to 10 men, and we just kept on going. No, at no point. I don't know. I think we used the subs late on in the game, didn't we?
Not sure, Hugh. Maybe you can.
Was it Bobby Lennox?
I need to check that.
I think.
Subs don't matter. It was the goals that mattered.
Yeah. Tell me this, Murdo. Getting into the 90th minute, as Hugh says, 3-2 up. You as a coach, you've been a coach and a manager. What would you be telling you to do? Keep it, run into the corner, or taking a shot?
Oh, see, when you look back, it's great. So you just say, just shoot.
Yeah.
But my thoughts because when you see it in television, you see 3 Celtic players going down the left-hand side, and then I've ran them in between them, and then I get the pass, and then I'm taking a touch, and my thought was, I'm going to kick the ball as hard as I can and put it up the Celtic end, and the supporters will keep the ball, and then the game will finish. And then I changed, and I thought, no, just have a go at them. And I've smashed one in its top corner, and it was a good one.
It's an incredible strike. And it's obviously plan A was Rose Ed, but you've reverted to plan B very quickly, and it's a brilliant goal. For anyone who witnessed it, Hugh, and obviously you were there at the time, I've only seen footage, but it's a hell of a strike, Murdo, and I'm sure the response to that must have been electric.
Can I say,
of course,
there was a Rangers player at a night out, Colin Jackson, and then it was a question answer, and somebody put their hand up and says, Colin, what's your favourite goal? And he turned round and he looked at me and he says, Murdo's goal against us. And the Rangers supporters that was there, they're kind of, why are you saying his goal? He says, well, if he hadn't scored another goal, I'd have been the Rangers supporter who's won the league for Celtic.
Yeah, he scored the own goal that made it 3-2.
The own goal, yeah.
So he would have been the match winner, the league winner.
Big Colin Jackson, he was great.
Yeah, fair
person. Yeah.
At that point, Murdo, as I've mentioned, you're about 6 months into your Celtic career. You've not long left Dumbarton, and all of a sudden you're a league winner. Again, I've asked, could you have anticipated that? At that stage in your career, all of a sudden you're playing for Billy McNeil, you're playing in front of 50,000 fans. Were you taking it all in your stride at that young age?
I was, but I think at a young age, I played over nearly 100 games for Dumbarton. So it's not like, I'm a kid just coming into the place. I was experienced enough, and then I was in the Scotland squad for the Scotland league team. I was in that squad, so it was great. But then when you're getting in the front door at Celtic Park, it's here we go.
Yeah, something different.
This is a wee bit different than 50,000 people coming into the game.
Also shows you the difference, I suppose, between then and the modern game, Hugh. We speak about players who are 21, 22, even 23 at Celtic and say, they're just a kid, you need to give them time, they're just coming through. Murdo's got 100 games under his belt, and that wouldn't be unique to yourself and other players of your age at that time. And I suppose it just shows that the game has changed in the 40, 50 years since dramatically.
I think as a personality, Murdo had a great maturity about him, even as a youngster. I mean, he was young when he got married. He was young when he was a father for the first time and the second time. And he took all of that in his stride. He and Mary just got on with everyday life, and he could handle the football in tandem with all of that. Today's young men might not have the same degree of maturity about them, but he handled it. He had a great humour about him, a great respect for Billy, a great respect for the club, and it helps when you're talented in the bargain.
It's not a bad thing to have in your locker. Murdo, 1979, that's the first of your dramatic final day title deciders, but not the last, and there's a few more to cover. There's various highlights, and we don't have time to cover them all, but I will go through them relatively briefly. So you've won the Scottish Cup in 1980. That's the 1-0 win over Rangers. George McCluskey gets the goal. Hampden riots follow. I think, is that the last time alcohol was allowed in a football stadium, Hugh?
The Criminal Justice Scotland Act came into being after that and remains in place.
44 years later. You then win the league again, 1980-81 season, and then again the following season, 81-82, where again you win on the last day. I'm not sure if it's quite as dramatic as 1979 or Love Street, which we're about to get to. It's a 3-0 win over Airdrie to beat Alex Ferguson's Aberdeen to the title. They would of course go on to win the Cup Winners' Cup the next season in Gothenburg. The 1982 League Cup final, that's worth spending a bit of time on, Murdo. Celtic won 2-1, goals from Charlie Nicholas and yourself. How does it feel to score a winner against Rangers in a cup final?
It was a wee bit special. It was because I remember reading the newspapers, and then whoever scores the first goal gets a watch, and whoever scores the last goal gets they get a prize as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, God, I've scored the winning goal, but I don't get anything.
Charlie Nicholas scores the opener, Jim Bett scores late
Jim
for
Bett,
Rangers, and Murdo gets nothing.
Apart from satisfaction.
No. Yeah.
I get the goal.
Yeah.
So that was the most important thing. And again, it was one of my favourite goals. I've been fortunate enough that I can hit with both feet as good as each other, and that one top corner and all that kind of thing. It was great. But it was one of the best performances from Celtic that played, and it was Jim Bett scored the goal quite early into the second half. But after that, we were quite comfortable keeping the ball, and that was.
Were you always a goal scorer from your youth? Did you were you always centre mid, or did you play elsewhere as a kid or anything?
Centre mid. I played everywhere. In Dumbarton, I was kind of wide left. I would be there for a lot of games, and as if that the manager was putting me somewhere so that I can learn the game, and then end up going from wide left into left midfield and then into centre mid and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'd heard you'd even been slotted in at right back on occasion at Celtic, maybe when Roy Aitken or somebody was missing. So you've played across the park. But yeah, goal scoring midfielders, are a relatively rare breed nowadays, but it was something that you were, clearly picking up on from an early age, and no bigger goal to score than a cup final against Rangers. Celtic lose the 1984 Scottish Cup. Roy Aitken harshly sent off against Aberdeen, but we do go on to win it in 1985. It's 2-1 against Dundee United. Davy Provan famously scores a free kick. I believe you were brought down for the free kick. Is that true? So you've played your part there. Is that an assist? We'll put it down. And Frank McGarvey with the flying diving header for that one. Hugh, how important is Murdo to these successes for Celtic in the first half of the 80s?
Well, I think you can see the thread that runs through the big moments. Murdo's always involved. He'd only been a Celtic player a matter of weeks when he scores the goal in the 4-2 game that wins the league. And everything that happened thereafter, as I say, I don't put that down to coincidence. I put that down to the value he brought to the team. And also this phenomenal confidence, because when the league was won in 86, I remember saying to him, what do you think? He said, no, we'll still win it. And at that time, Hearts were on a fantastic run.
Yep.
And they had Sandy Jardine, who won the Player of the Year. He and Ali McDonald were a formidable managerial team, and they had gone a long number of games without defeat. But Murdo said to me, Celtic will still win this. And when the day of reckoning arrived at Love Street, there was only one wife, I believe, who went to the game, one Celtic wife who went to the game, and it was Roy MacLeod, because Murdo told her the league will be won at Paisley.
Yeah, such was the belief. So let's get to that then. So it's 3rd of May 1986, Murdo. Just again to set the scene, Hearts, as Hugh rightly says, are a phenomenal run of form. I don't think they'd lost since late September of that season. They were in a great run of form. All they have to do is draw to guarantee the league. It's back in the 2 points for a win day, so Celtic are 2 points behind and 4 goals behind getting into the game. As Hugh says, Murdo, did you have that genuine belief that Celtic were going to do it on the day?
Yeah, I think I said to Hugh about 5 or 6 weeks before it, he says, we're going to win the league. It was maybe just after the Rangers game, or
I think Celtic won their last 8 games of the season, if I've got that correctly. So they're obviously in a huge winning streak, a huge run of form.
So there we are. That's all we need to do, just win them all. But just what you were saying there, that Hearts were a very good side.
Mm-hmm.
But again, no, we've got to do our part. We've got to make sure that we score enough goals to get by them and all that kind of thing.
I think anyone of a certain age will remember the moment when the ball is in Jim Stewart's hands, the St Mirren goalkeeper, and Love Street erupts, and you can see the quizzical look on Jim Stewart's face. Why are they cheering? And that was Albert Kidd's first goal for Dundee. Bedlam. A second goal quickly. 7 minutes to go. Hearts are the champions. 7 minutes later, Celtic are the champions. Absolute bedlam. Field invasion. And again, one of those special nights, a climax to a league championship that was straight out of the history books.
Just in terms of some of the finer detail, and you've touched on it, Hugh, about Albert Kidd. So Archie Knox, no great friend of Celtic. Archie Knox brings Albert Kidd off the bench for Tosh McKinley, who goes on to play for Celtic. Was he there when you guys were there in 98, Murdo?
Yes.
Tosh?
Yeah.
So Tosh comes off, Albert Kidd comes on, hasn't scored a goal all season, waits till the final day to score one and then two to condemn Hearts to a 2-0 defeat. And as you rightfully say, chaos ensues. Murdo, Hugh has mentioned Billy McNeil's team talk in 1979 and motivating you for what became the 4-2 game. Davy Hayes, the man in charge at Love Street, what was his approach to the game and what were his final messages before you go out for that one?
I think he was always talking about just go out and play the way you can play. Everyone's got to do that. You're not looking for someone to do something a wee bit different. Just play the way you can play, and I think that's what's happened. Because even when we came off at half time, we were told it's 1-0 for Hearts,
right?
And we were in the dressing room the whole time, and it wasn't until we were coming back down the tunnel that someone says it's nothing each at Dens Park.
You'll hear guys like Brendan Rodgers nowadays, Murdo, talking about all you can do is focus on your own job. Doesn't matter what anyone else is doing, one game at a time. And in essence, is that what you guys had to do? Care less about Hearts v Dundee, that would take care of itself. And as you say, just go out and play the way that you can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's how you play better then. Because if you can reach your standards every day that you're training at Celtic Park, and then come the Saturday, you've got to play well. You've got to be there all the time. And I think that was the most important thing for the whole Celtic team that was involved for that game. Because just as Hugh said there, it was great seeing the St Mirren goalie, and he's looking about to see why they are cheering. Why they all cheering?
People will find this terribly quaint as they listen now, but there was no internet, no mobile phones, and it was the end of my first season on Radio Clyde, and at Dens Park we had Jim Craig, another Lisbon Lion.
Yes.
And Jim Craig was the man who brought the news that Albert Kidd had scored. And, people are listening on their transistor radios, holding them up to their ear. As I say, it sounds quaint, antiquated even, but that was the reality of life then. And so the ground explodes, and Jim Stewart is rightfully puzzled. Why are they all cheering? Just an astonishing day. But as Murdo said, Celtic played really well. The goals were terrific, and they kept going while not knowing if it would all be in vain in the end.
The goal that Mo Johnson scores, and everyone will have their own opinion from a Celtic world in terms of Mo Johnson being the man that scored this goal, but it's potentially one of the best goals Celtic have ever scored in Celtic's entire history. It starts with Danny McGrain. You play a part in it, Murdo, I believe. Do you want to talk us through it?
I won two. Well, Danny passed it from the edge of the box. He passed it to the left to me, and I gave him it back, and then it went all the way down the right hand side, and then it was just a wee touch into the goal to score the goal. But it was just, and we're looking at a good St Mirren team. You're looking at them, the good players that comes into challenges and all that, and you had to be strong against them.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone else says, St Mirren just let Celtic win, which they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They made it difficult for us to go. But we were fortunate enough that we scored goals at the right time.
Yeah, and when you've got players like Brian McLeod, Paul McStay, etc. on your team, you're always going to do pretty well if these guys can let the shackles off you. There's so much talent that was in that side.
All I remember after on the M8 going back from Paisley to Glasgow city centre, traffic was horrendous as usual, and there were people just stopping their cars on the M8 to have a wee dance.
Why not?
Just an incredible night of the kind that periodically the Celtic fans get to enjoy.
Murdo, that was your fourth and final league title with Celtic, but what is it about leaving it until the very last minute, and why did you have to make it so stressful for everyone?
I thought that was just let them enjoy themselves and put them under a wee bit of pressure, because the players are under a wee bit of pressure. So all the supporters, they're under a wee bit of pressure. They're supporting their team and pushing forward and singing songs for the team. And but you're part of a team who everyone expects good performances and winning major trophies.
Yeah.
And I think if we were always doing that, that's the way Celtic play.
I think so. Maybe good for the neutral hue, but not good for the stress levels of the Celtic fans. Well, actually, again, I keep bringing it back to modern day, but there are similarities in terms of Celtic at this moment in time find themselves in a genuine title race. At time of recording here, we're 3 points ahead of Rangers with 3 games remaining. And some Celtic fans have been losing their minds over, how close and how anxious it's become. But this is part of football, and it's certainly part of Celtic's history, Murdo, isn't it? It's something that we've done various times throughout the years. You yourself have played a part in several of them, but it's competitive football, and I know it's tense, but it's exciting, and it's what football's about.
That's what it is all about. No, you go and win the title, and then you can celebrate. But the supporters, they watch Celtic just now. I thought last week was one of the best performances for a long time, and that's what the supporters will be wanting again at the weekend.
Yeah, so Celtic obviously in the driving seat right now, Hugh, and not to dwell on the modern day, obviously we're here to talk about Murdo, but there are similarities, and we've all witnessed Celtic winning titles at a canter in recent years. Brendan Rodgers won his first title by 30 points, Neil Lennon's won by big margins, Ronnie Dyler won by 17 points, then 15 points, but as I say, that's neck and neck stuff. And I'm saying this with the hope that Celtic do get over the line, but it's what football's all about.
Well, particularly in this city, we have not known tension on this scale for a long time. And the story of Murdo's life, when he was teamed up with Vim, that particular championship, I have never known tension like it in my life. You have to understand that the toll it takes on people. I was reminded of it a few weeks ago. We had a caller on Radio Clyde who was calling from Chicago, 63 years old, Celtic fan, and he said, I can no longer watch or listen to an Old Firm game. I drive around the neighbourhood until it's over, and then I come back and I find out there is a 63-year-old man 3,665 miles away from Glasgow. And that's the strain it can take. When Murdo and Vim came to the last day of an incredible season, and we can go back over it in detail, but on the day of the St Johnstone game at Celtic Park, I was asked to go along early, have some lunch with Radio Clyde invited guests and tell them a few stories and a little bit of lightheartedness before the game. And as I was going to leave, I said that, where's Vary? Vary was the girl who was in charge of the box. I said, standing over there, and I tapped her on the shoulder, and she turned around and she was weeping. And this was before the game started. She was weeping out of anxiety. And when I saw her after the game, she appeared to be trying to get Alan Stubbs' jersey off his back. So that's what the tension's like.
Yeah, and we will cover that in detail in just a moment. There's so much to cover. I was at that one, Murdo, and we'll certainly get into it. Having not experienced 86, Love Street, having certainly not experienced 79, this was a big one for me and certainly folk of my generation. It was just, we had gone through the misery of the 90s, let's be honest about it, and this was just the redemption for all of that. But we'll get to it because there's a story to be told in between times. You leave Celtic just before the centenary season, Murdo, and we'll obviously cover the fact that you do come back a short time later. But you go to Dortmund. It's quite a unique move. There's not many players going out to that part of the world at that time. You've joined German giants Borussia, of course. How did that move come about, Murdo, and how did you enjoy your time in German football?
How did it come about? It came about because of my contract at Celtic. And the manager at the time didn't want to do things. So the next day it was in the newspapers that I've not signed a contract. And then I get a phone call from a guy, a foreign guy. Hello, Mr. MacLeod. My name is whatever his name was. And I'm saying, that's Big Roy Aitken.
That's Hugh Keevans at the wind-up.
And then that was on the Friday. And this guy asked me, how would you like to come and play in German football? And I says, I'd love that. And then next day I got another phone call from another guy. And so the two guys were different. One wanted me to go to Dortmund, the other one wanted me to go to Eintracht Frankfurt. And then I was asked to go to the game. The two of them were still playing at the end of the season. And I went over and watched the game. And Dortmund won 4-0, I think it was. And they qualified for European football. And what did that cause? Celtic.
Yeah, they draw Celtic in the UEFA Cup in September 1987. I mean, just in general terms, stepping aside from football, this is pre-Berlin Wall coming down, which was at the end of 1989. How was life in Germany? Was it an enjoyable place to be? Were you well looked after?
Oh, it was fantastic. Like, absolutely great place to go to for a football player. And I always think that people like Paul McStay and football players like that would be absolutely fantastic in Germany. But no one left Scotland to go abroad. Most of them would go down south. But I was fortunate enough to go to the right club at the right time. And then you've got 50, 60,000 fans. No, it's great, and they just sing along, and it was great.
They seem to be a lively bunch of supporters. That there'll be similarities there in terms of the passion from the Dortmund fans. You still see now they're in I think on the semi-finals of the European Cup this year. There's huge passion that comes from that support base, and it's obviously very similar to what the Celtic fans bring here. You're absolutely spot on, Murdo. You get drawn to play Celtic in the UEFA Cup, September 1987. How did you feel when you heard the draw? And what was your experience like going back to Celtic Park in the away dressing room?
When we were away in the country, and it was just after lunch, and then one of the players had a radio, and we sat in the stairs at the hotel where we were, and we're sitting there listening to the draw coming through, and then it went on and on and on, and then eventually I'm thinking, what's happening here? And then Celtic Glasgow will play Borussia Dortmund, and all the players, that's your fault, that's your fault.
Jinxed it.
They all felt that because the German players don't like playing against the British players, and no, it's because they know that they've got a wee bit of steel about them. They get into challenges and all that kind of thing. So that was nothing for me, because I knew exactly who I was playing against and all that kind of thing.
You've spent 9 years at Celtic, Murdo. How does it feel to then be up against the guys that only months prior you'd been sharing a dressing room with?
Oh yeah, for me it was a strange one, but again it was great for me coming back, and the Celtic supporters they're singing my name and all that kind of thing, and even after the game when Celtic scored a late goal, and the whole place was just singing my name, and it was so emotional.
Guys like yourself, Murdo, Henrik Larsson, Harold Bratback are all guys that have played and then come back to haunt Celtic in later years in European stuff. It must be quite a unique experience, but to hear them sing your name, and I've read up on that occasion, it must have been mixed feelings. Certainly you're there to do your job and you're there to win, and Dortmund do win 3-2, but there must have been pride in knowing that just how well regarded you were by the Celtic support at that time.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, it was great. It was even when during the game, and it's a free kick for Celtic, and the jungle are singing Murdo, 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 Murdo. They were singing for me to take the free kick, and I thought, no, I'm not, just in case.
Those days are gone.
I go back to the maturity. Murdo learned German, and it was fluent, and Murdo's wife fluent, and the children fluent. They went, they assimilated themselves into the culture. They were unafraid of life in a foreign country, and the ultimate proof of all of that was learning the language and being just part of the community. So again, the maturity was always there.
And it sounds like it's something you would recommend, Murdo. We're seeing a number of young Scots going out now. Lewis Ferguson doing great in Italy. Aaron Hickey was there for a spell. Josh Doig and a few others dotted around. Some young kids in Austria, some Celtic boys out on loan in that part of the world. Is it something you'd recommend to a young player to develop as a player and as a person?
I think so. I think that for most young players, there's good quality football now across everywhere you go. Every game you watch from the foreign side, you look at it and you watch it, and then our players can fit in. Because I think personally, for our squad, I don't know how they've been very good. For qualifying, they've been good, but then all of a sudden it looks as if the way Scotland played and losing games and all that kind of thing, I think we can get better, and I think that's what we've got to look at. If players are going to foreign countries and they've got to get better themselves, within themselves, that they know how to play football better than what the rest of the players are.
Yeah, and I'm sure they can, pick up new ideas and experiences from a variety of different coaches and playing styles.
Well, football's so similar. Most games that you watch just now is some passes from the back, wide left, down the side, into the box. Oh, then it's away again and start again and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We've got to do something to change it slightly.
Yeah, and hopefully, as I say, these young Scots going abroad will be part of that. Let's stay on Scotland then, Murdo. You go with Scotland to the 1990 World Cup in Italy, which in itself must have been a great experience. You've picked up 20 caps overall for your country, scoring 1 goal, and I believe most of those caps were earned after you left Celtic, so when you were doing your thing in Dortmund. Talk us through being at a World Cup though, and the pride that must come with representing your country on the big stage.
Yeah, well, you said the right word there. It's fantastic to be part of it. Yeah, you're waiting there when the squad's getting picked, and then you're in the squad to go to, and everything that you spoke about, everybody was listening to what it was. But when you look at it, we had so many players still playing in Scottish football at that time. It wasn't speaking to other players who's been abroad, and it's for me personally, I think it was a strange thing that players are not asking other players who's been abroad to what was it like. It's different, because I remember watching one of the Dortmund players. He's come across and the striker's going right through the middle, and he's went in and he's just kicked the ball straight up into the stand, and they booed him for not keeping the ball. And I'm thinking, that's typical German, that you've got to keep the ball.
Yeah.
Don't give the ball away. Don't keep the ball all the time. And that's the way the Germans played all the time.
And were you able to take those lessons and that, newfound experience to the World Cup? So you're 32, I believe, in 1990. I've looked at the squad and some of the players involved. There's a young John Collins, for example. John Collins played in the 98 World Cup a number of years later as a more experienced player. But in 1990, guys like him, they're just kids. Were you able to, put your knowledge and newfound experience across to the rest of the squad at that time?
Yeah. I used to do things that I would do here. Even going out to the park and getting stretched and warm up. They weren't doing that. They stayed inside the dressing room, the Dortmund players, all the time. And then you would see them touching their toes and all that kind of thing. And I'm saying, no, come on, let's go out. Let's go out to the pitch. And then they all started coming out to the park, and players will talk about it. Because the amount of things that I would say that they would do it. And we were fortunate enough to go on and win in the German Cup, because I spoke to them about what you've got to do. It doesn't matter if somebody's kicked you, you get up and kick them back. And
winning something, going to Germany as an experience in itself, it would have been great, if that's all it was. But to go and win, I think you win the German Cup there for Dortmund and everything that goes with it. It's obviously that in itself, those experiences do help you at a World Cup where you play in a win against Sweden and then you play against Brazil. Before we move off from the the World Cup and the international stuff, how is it to come up against the best of the best, Brazil, at a World Cup?
That's your dream. For any kid in Scotland, was the dream to play against Brazil in the World Cup. So I was fortunate enough to be part of it, and then I was fortunate enough to be part of or unfortunate enough to be part of a wall in front of the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I was just not cold, and that was me. I played for another 5 minutes and then I was off.
Yeah, so you're referencing the incident with Branco. Branco hits the free kicks at the time for Brazil. Powerful striker of the ball, and he's caught you flush, hasn't he? It's knocked you out at the time. And bizarrely now, looking back on it, you should have been off and away for treatment, but you get treated on the park and then you're back to it, as you say, for another 5 minutes. But that was the end of your game after that. It was right that you then get taken off. But that aside, and that obviously has a notable incident, but that aside, to play on the biggest stage of all, Hugh, against Brazil, a team synonymous with World Cup success, it's something else, isn't it?
Well, Murdo only got 20 caps for Scotland, which, on reflection, I find strange. But simply to have had that experience of playing against Brazil, to have played against England at Wembley, he has gone to a variety of mountaintops in a Scotland top. So it may only be 20 caps, but he deserved them, and he merited his place at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. Murdo, after the World Cup, you then, come back home from Germany. You end up playing with Hibs between 1990 and 93. You won the League Cup, I think, in 92. And again, you then have a couple of seasons at Dumbarton, back where it all began, as player coach between 93 and 95, winning a promotion in the process. And then a short spell as manager Partick Thistle between 95 and 97. Then the story again comes full circle. It's a return to Celtic, and this time with Wim Jansen. So the club come calling in the summer of 1997. Can you remember how that all came to be, who got in touch and how you got appointed?
Davy Hay was there. He started the whole thing. I was asked to become a coach at Celtic, and they were talking about they've not got enough coaches about the, and I wasn't sure what coach they were wanting, because they didn't have anything for the first team squad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was asked to go to be a coach, and I says yes, I'll come to Celtic, yeah. And then it wasn't until Wim Jansen arrived in Holland, and then one night, or it would be the second night, he was there, and asked me to come over to the corner and asked me to become his assistant.
Yeah, 'cause I believe you'd been taken to do with pre-season training at the time. Wim arrived a bit late in the day, didn't he, Hugh? So I think yourself and maybe Davy Hay supporting had dealt with the pre-season. And I think, and as it proved to be the case, having someone with not just the knowledge of Scottish football, but the knowledge needed of Celtic and what it means to be a Celtic player and what it means to win for Celtic, that proved to be, invaluable for Wim during that one sole season at the club. How did you get on with them the first time? Did you guys click right away? Was there a genuine connection?
Yeah, just it was strange, because early on, I remember we were playing a team, and they were an amateur team, and I think we won about 23-0 or something like that. But I kept on saying, "Come on, keep on moving to the players." Keep them going instead of them just switching off. And then Vim just says, "Murdo, just sit down. It's okay. I think we'll win this one.
Just relax.
Just relax." But he was fantastic. Then the players got on so well with him.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. Great for us. What we were chasing after. Mm-hmm. We managed to achieve that, so that was special for everyone.
The circumstances under which Wim Jansen arrived. There are echoes of Ange Postecoglou about it all. He comes in, the headlines are horrendous. They bring up Wim's previous record in Japan, which hadn't been great. And he was mocked. The curly hair, the whole bit. And like Ange who? Mm-hmm. So, and then Murdo is paired with him, and it's an untried, unknown pairing. And it's the season in which Rangers can win 10 in a row. Mm-hmm. So from day one against Hibs at Easter Road, Murdo and Wim are right up against it.
Chick Charnley doesn't do us any favours, does he?
There's a great story in the book, but I'm not going to tell you. You have to buy a book.
Great teaser.
Chick Charnley story.
Great marketing. But yes, obviously it doesn't work out. Henrik Larsson, effectively his first action as a Celtic player is to give it to Chick Charnley, who bangs one in from 30 yards. We suffered defeat that day against Hibs, and then Dunfermline the week after. I've got a quote, excuse my language, Murdo MacLeod says after that game, "This is Celtic Park. We don't fucking lose here to Dunfermline." How was tension at that time, Murdo? You're 2 games in, you and Wim were the dream team. Didn't get off to a great start, did it?
I didn't know I could swear, because that's what happened. I said to the players after the Dunfermline game, and I says, "No one wins here. No one wins here." And I'm no swearing.
And we can always beep it out.
But that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because see, if all the other players, they're playing with teams that if they draw at home or something like that, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Celtic isn't all right.
Yeah.
You've got to win, and it had to go that way. I had all the players, and it was great that the players, every time you're telling them something about the club, this is what they've got to get inside them. Anytime they're playing against big teams, doesn't matter who they're playing against, make sure you're there, you're fighting with them.
Yeah, and it's a talented team you take over. There's lots of really talented players. Least of all, a fellow who just signed, Henrik Larsson, guy from Feyenoord, if it rings any bells. Wim Janssen obviously knew all about him from his time in the Netherlands. But did you realise, Murdo, early on just how special a player he was going to become?
He was the type of player who get better and better every single week. Every single week, and people will watch him playing football and Henrik's this and Henrik's that, but Henrik works so hard, and he get better. Because I don't think when he came for that first season, mm-hmm. albeit he scored the goal against St Johnstone, but Henrik get better as the years went on. And I think that's what makes him the top guy.
Yeah, I think he spent 7 years at Celtic, and as you rightfully say, he improved year on year on year. One thing I always talk about when I talk about Henrik Larsson is that he, like a lot of the top players, I think of Luka Modric and guys like that in the modern game, yes, they're extremely talented, but they also work extremely hard. They don't just turn up and expect it to happen. Uh-huh. And he must have been a great example, Murdo, to the other young players at that time. You've got guys like Simon Donnelly, kind of younger player, and a few others around Celtic Park at the time. And what an example to have someone like Henrik Larsson leading the way.
Yeah, all the time. No, he was there, and obviously I was going to say training with Tosh.
Go on then. You might as well.
So the likes of that was not good, but again, it wasn't. It didn't cause big problems anywhere. But just Henrik, it was at the wrong time of that season that he had to get back home for things and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't very nice when Tosh gave him a wee nod.
a wee nod, is that what we're calling it? So for those who don't remember, Henrik Larsson turns up with a black eye one day after training. Him and Tosh have come to blows of some sort. Any more detail on that, Murdo, or are you going to keep that in the dressing room?
Oh no, that's it.
That's it.
That's a Glasgow one, isn't it?
Just a wee coming together.
Aye.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
It's in the book.
Is it? Another plug for the book?
Yeah.
Shameless you, shameless. You've got the situation, as we mentioned, Celtic don't go off to a great start, but the season certainly gets better. Yourself, Wim and the team really start to gel. Larsson starts to find his feet, and things start to go particularly well. We get to a situation towards the end of the season. Hugh, you can refresh my memory. I heard you talking about it on the radio just the other day. On the second last day of the season, Rangers lose to Kilmarnock.
Ali Mitchell scored the goal at Ibrox.
Ali Mitchell, it was nothing each getting into the latter stages, and Ali Mitchell scores to make it 1-0, meaning Celtic can win the league by beating Dunfermline at East End Park. I will always remember the name of the guy who scored for Dunfermline. I don't know why I remember it. Simon Donnelly opens the scoring for Celtic, but Craig Falconbridge, on loan from Coventry, I believe, scores a looping header that goes in against Jonathan Gould.
You can imagine how the fans feel, that Ali Mitchell has scored at Ibrox, and believe me when I say it was deep into the game. It's probably 98, 99 minutes, and it was the least expected development of the day. So the Celtic fans going to Dunfermline were in high spirits. Games live on television. I remember my youngest daughter, Simon, scores. She ran upstairs and put on a Celtic top, and I said, you can take it back off. Dunfermline have equalised, thereby setting up that incredible final day, Celtic against St Johnstone.
In hindsight, and it is in hindsight, you wouldn't have it any other way, but it was devastating at the time because, speaking from my own experience as a young-ish Celtic fan at that time, you've known nothing but Rangers' success during the 90s. You're then on the cusp of sealing the title at East End Park, and we fail to do so, and it all goes down to a last day decider. Your favourite thing, Murdo, by all accounts, taking it down to the wire. And it is a tense day, and Murdo's spoken about Vary at Celtic and the emotion pre and post match, and I think we all felt tension of of different varieties at that time. But Henrik Larsson puts us all at ease, certainly for a time. He scores early bells. Murdo, he scores after I think 3 or 4 minutes, and at that point you can relax. But it was a long, long time before Celtic were sure of the victory. I think George O'Boyle has a huge chance to equalise for St Johnstone.
How he missed it, I'll never know to this day.
Yeah, I'll just need to put that down to fate. But how were you feeling, Murdo? You've got a huge history with Celtic. You've had 9 years as a player. You're now back with Wim Jansen, this new venture you're on, and it comes right down to the wire. How are you feeling during that game?
Watching the game there, I felt all right. But then it was the full 90 minutes were on the television a wee while later.
Right.
And I watched it and I thought, oh, for goodness sake. No wonder everyone was nervous watching the game, because the amount of times we were giving the ball away and putting the ball out the park when a long pass or anything like that. And I'm thinking, goodness me, what a difference watching it. Just being part of it, other than watching all the supporters, because the amount of supporters spoke about it and says, oh goodness me, that's the most nervous they've been during a game and all that kind of thing. And I was more nervous watching
after the fact,
watching the game. But then watching when Harold get the second goal, it was just calmed everybody down a wee bit.
Yeah, so that comes along. I think it's the 72nd minute where Harold Bratpack scores. Is it Tom Boyd that scores it to him? And there's just, it's relief as much as anything around the stadium, isn't it? I always credit Henrik Larsson, who jumps on Bratpack's back at the time and points down towards him. Harold Bratpack he got a fair bit of stick as a Celtic striker because he missed a lot of chances. He'd come from Rosenborg in Norway, where the pressure is completely different, and he'd had his troubles at Celtic, but he will always now be fondly remembered as the man who stopped the 10 effectively, and Larsson recognised that, and I thought that was a great moment. The final whistle blows, Celtic Park goes wild, fans on the pitch, all sorts of stuff going on. Murdo, what's the emotion at that time?
What an achievement it was for everyone, because I think when you're looking at the players, you feel as though they've all been part of something really special, and it didn't matter whether it was Henry you're looking at, or Tosh or whoever. You looked at them and they were all part of what everyone moaned about at the start of the season. When we lost the first couple of games and all that kind of thing, and everybody was moaning about them, and the journalists who was moaning about them, as well as who's this guy coming to Scotland and all that kind of thing. But the whole thing gets stronger and stronger. That whole season was great. All the players, they all knew what to do.
What do fans do to relieve tension when it's all over? It's cabaret time. They go to every pub, social club, and off sales, and they whoop the night away. And I said to Murdo, what did you and Wim do? She went to bed, went home, went to bed, had a fish supper.
Yeah.
He had a fish supper.
Was
it all too much to take? Had it been such a
no,
journey?
No, I was knackered.
Just gubbed?
Aye, I was gubbed, aye. And I'd said that I didn't say gubbed to him, even what gubbed was. I says, and he says, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And him and I walked down from the halfway line down to the bottom end, and then just walked back up. And he says, this is very special, isn't it? Yeah.
It must have been around that time, Murdo. I've got some information, from you in the book, and there's a situation where, you speak to him, there's a chance he's going to leave. There's obviously a lot of talk about it behind the scenes and different fallouts with Fergus McCann and some others there. And I think you're urging him to stay. and he replies along the lines of, Murdo, what a way to go. Is that how it played out?
That's what it was. Aye, what a way to go. So that was it. Big smile on my face as well. Just walking down, and he's been great. He's been great, and he was a good friend as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the family, they're down there. They're flying from Holland to come and watch all the games and all that kind of thing. And it was fantastic. But to be part of how he left and all that kind of thing, he made up his own mind, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. And it was obviously only one season together, Murdo, but what a special season it turned out to be. Were you sad in many ways that you and Wim couldn't build on the success that you'd found during that year?
Yeah. No, it'd have been nice to play again together, and when we even looking at the European games, when we played Liverpool, and what was the other game? Was it 5-4 or something?
I was at the Liverpool
Do you remember?
game.
Liverpool, aye.
Steve McManaman scored like a solo goal against us at Celtic Park, and I think maybe Jackie McNamara scored at Anfield, if I remember. But there was some, obviously some big moments.
Jackie scored at Celtic Park. Was it a penalty, or was it Simon?
We'll need to get back to it. We'll need to find out.
See which one. Aye.
I suppose ultimately though, the title itself was the highest of highs, but there was League Cup success that season. Celtic weren't in a habit of winning a lot of trophies, Hugh. And with Wim and Murdo at the helm, we won the League Cup. I think it's December. At Ibrox, Mark Reaper scores, Craig Burley, someone else.
There was a tremendous dignity about Wim.
Mark Reaper.
Tremendous dignity about Wim Jansen. As I say, he came with these headlines that were entirely negative, and he maintained his composure, and he and Murdo just worked away diligently. And he won the League Cup, as you say. And then, there was the unbelievable New Year game against Rangers where Paul Lambert scores a fantastic goal. Mm-hmm. That turns everything. But they survive the moment at Dunfermline when Falconbridge scores. And Wim went out as he arrived with his head held high. And Murdo remembers they played a friendly after the win over St Johnstone and the league being won. Went abroad, played a friendly, and the players then knew that Wim was going. But at the end of that game, you're in the dressing room, and Wim starts the song, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Stand up for the champions.
Stand up for the champions. Yeah. He's no a singer or anything like that.
Not Tom Boyd.
He just started singing, "Come on, everyone, stand up for the champions." So that was great.
And that was it. That was his swan song, Murdo. Was that his effectively his final act as Celtic manager? He obviously very sadly passed away just a few years ago, Murdo, and you and him, I believe, grew extremely close. Are you still in touch with his family all these years later?
Yeah.
Good relationship
there?
Yeah,
I've been out in Holland a couple of times.
I just think he's a man who will forever be remembered for what he done for Celtic, and again, I've used this word, Murdo, but you must take great pride in what was one of the most momentous days in modern Celtic history.
Aye, well, it's great. It's great to be part of it. When Mary said to Wim, Murdo's learned so much of you. No. I've learned so much from him.
Yeah.
And that,
a two-way street. Yeah.
It was. Because it's funny though, the amount of times you're thinking about taking someone off, and all of a sudden you say so-and-so, "Oh, that's who I was going to take off." Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it means the quality that we've got at Celtic, that the players, how good they were. So it wasn't as if, okay, just get him off and all that kind of thing. But it was, he kept everyone so much.
It sounds like you were on the same page on and off the park, if that's fair to say.
The remarkable thing was that in a very short space of time, a very close emotional bond was formed between the MacLeod family and the Janssen family. And it really was like that all the time. Every game at Celtic Park finished with the MacLeod family and the Janssen family in the manager's room singing "Walking in a Janssen Wonderland." It was it became every evening had to finish like that.
The best one for the players was that there was something going on, World Cup and all that kind of thing, and then Vim was standing talking about, right, everyone, and when you go in, don't fall in your bum, don't go down, stay up and all that kind of thing, and then all the players started laughing, and then Vim's kind of looking, why they're looking, and I says, they all watched the football last night, and you, when you went on your backside, and then that was a goal.
When Archie Gemmell scored.
Of course, aye. So
we Archie,
1978.
aye, and Vim said, "Oh yes,
Yeah.
I know," but then again he's just started again and says, right, but remember, don't do that again.
Do as I say, don't do as I do.
Aye, yeah.
And this is a man, Wilm Janssen, he played in the 1978 World Cup final, I think. So a man very experienced in his football life.
Beat Celtic in a European final as well.
1970 Feyenoord beat Celtic 2-1. So yeah, hugely missed Murdo. I'm sure you miss him, greatly.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear you've got the ongoing relationship with his family. As we start to round things off, I want to look, Murdo, importantly at your life after football and what Hugh describes as a third chance at life. So in 2010, and again just a couple of years ago, you have life-saving heart surgery, and on both occasions your wife Mary is told that there's nothing more that they can do for you. But in much the way that you competed as a player, you're not willing to give up without a fight, and here you are, to tell the tale today. Football, I'm sure, Murdo, has given you so much in your life, but I'm sure experiences such as that bring it all into perspective. Do you feel lucky to be here today?
Yes. But I don't feel lucky. I feel it's normal. What's happened to me it's happened. But I don't feel as though it's, I'm lucky for this and that and the next thing. I just feel anything that's what's happened in life, it happens to me, and I've still got problems all over, but I'll get on with it.
Do you feel this is just the journey your life has taken and just the way things have landed for you? What's life like, and I hope you don't mind me asking, but what's life like after 2010? As I've mentioned there, and I'm sure Hugh covers it in the book, it's life-saving surgery. It's obviously a very precarious time for you. Do you look at life differently after such an experience? Do you treat things differently? Do you look at things in a different way?
No. Everything's the same.
We went for lunch in Helensburgh. Murdo paid. No one will be surprised to hear that, but Murdo paid. And we're coming out, and I lost sight of him. And I was, trying to make sure that everything was okay. And then I said, "What happened?" And he was talking to two people, and I said, "You okay?" And he said, "Fine." He said, "It's people that keep me going." Mm-hmm. Murdo has had his medical problems, and as I said to you, I've twice visited him in intensive care, and I know what he's been through, and he details what he's been through, and extremely emotional, obviously. But we're coming out, and the people who stopped to ask him how he was progressing, convalescing, and he said, "It's the people who keep me going." And, obviously, Murdo goes back to Celtic for the home games, and everyone there is delighted to see him. Ange Postecoglou was very kind to Murdo when he was here. Brendan always looks out for Murdo. And I think that's right, because for me, he's one of the big figures in the club's history.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned there, Hugh, that people always look out for Murdo, but it's whether it's Celtic fans or Dortmund fans or Dumbarton fans or Scotland fans, there's so many that are so thankful what Murdo's brought across his footballing life. You've got the famous quote from Bill Shankly that says, "Some people think football is a matter of life and death. I assure you it's much more serious than that." But it's not, is it, Murdo?
I don't know. It's, if you're still here, you're still here. I think it's a hard thing to think what you're doing in life, and how are you lucky, or did someone helped you, somebody saved your life, you just go on with it.
Yeah. There's a quote I like, I heard it just recently, it's from Carlo Ancelotti, and I think it's a lot more balanced. He says that football is the most important thing amongst the least important things in life, and that's the way it should be. And I think that's a bit more accurate for me than Shankly's statement.
Yeah, what Murdo has gone through, he will not allow to define him.
Mm-hmm.
That was post-football, and it will not define him. What will define him is the 4-2 game, the 4-4 game at Ibrox, the League Cup final at Hampden, Scottish Cup final at Hampden, the title wins, the season spent with Wim Jansen, straight from the fairy tale department. That will define Murdo MacLeod.
Before I forget, just in terms of a bit of housekeeping, can you confirm then that the title of the book is Murdo? Yeah. When is it due to be released to you?
3rd of October.
3rd of October this year, 2024. And I expect it'll be available in all the usual places, potentially Celtic stores and otherwise.
Yeah. We're just putting the finishing touches to the cover to make him look as handsome as possible. And there's a lovely line from Henrik Larsson on the cover of the book, which sums up Henrik Larsson's feelings in a single sentence about Murdo MacLeod. So when the King of Kings delivers that line, the Celtic supporters will understand what he thought of Murdo MacLeod.
And once again, do we have to buy the book to get that line, Hugh?
Without doubt.
Without a shadow. And as always, we'll be sure to link to the various places where people can pick up a copy. So it goes without saying, we wish you both the very best of luck with the book. Murdo, a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. And as I say, thanks to yourself, Hugh. Best of wishes with the book. It goes without saying. And thanks again for joining us here on the Celtic Exchange.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.